It's 12th May 2026. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the midday news on 3FM 92.7. We're live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. I am Noble Crosby Annan. Coming up this afternoon, close to thousands displaced in the Nalerigu-Gambaga district following a heavy rainstorm that swept through the area on Monday evening. Plus, Minority Leader Alexander Piomakin accuses the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, of politically motivated actions targeted at loyalists of the opposition, the NPP. We have details of these stories and a lot more coming to you shortly. Please stay with us. Welcome to the program. Let's start off the afternoon with this. And hundreds of residents in the Nalerigu-Gambaga district have been displaced after a heavy rainstorm swept through the area on Monday evening. And several homes, school buildings, and other public infrastructure were either flattened or had their roofs ripped off by the storm. Initial assessment by the National Disaster Management Organization estimates that nearly 1,000 residents across 5 communities have been displaced. Our reporter Solomon Kanaluwe, who is on the ground, is joining us with some more on the situation. Solomon, thank you for joining us. Good afternoon to you. What is the extent of the damage and how many communities have been affected? Plus, what is the nature of the impact?
All right, so looking at the extent of the damage, I can say that it is very widespread and has spread far beyond just 5 communities. Many other areas have been hit, and I have seen countless houses where the roofs have been torn off by the wind. Thousands of people are currently without a home because their houses are no longer safe to live in. I can report that the destruction goes beyond what we are seeing on the screen, as there are houses that have the walls weakened and the roofs, though not removed from the building, but have been weakened such that the slightest wind could displace them entirely. Currently, electricity has been cut off from these affected communities. Even there are some communities that have not been affected, but because NADMO officials want safety of other people, they have to instruct that the electricity company turns off electricity from most of the affected areas, including the areas that have not been affected. So I can tell you that the destruction has gone very wide within the Nalerigu-Gambaga district.
I see. We know that officials from the National Disaster Management Organization, they have made some estimates and they may have been there. Talk to us, as residents wait for assistance, have you seen officials from NADMO on the ground, and what have they been telling the affected residents?
All right, so yes, I have seen officials from the East Mamprusi Municipal NADMO organization. I've seen them on site. They are currently, as I talk to you, on ground, assessing the area. What their focus is to assess the extent of the damage being caused and the kind of help that these people temporarily need. They told me currently they can say that more than thousands have been affected, but before they can give me the exact number of people that have been affected, they have to assess the areas completely. So maybe by 4 p.m., as they said, we will be able to get the number of people that have been affected.
And I'm sure that would also inform the kind of help that they will render to these people.
Sure. They told me currently they have to first look for a place for these people to sleep. So what they are doing as they move about is moving some of the affected persons to nearby houses and to some to family members. Currently, that's what they are doing.
Solomon, thank you so much for the reporting. Solomon Kwame Kanaluwe is a reporter who spoke with us about the situation in the Nalerigu-Gambaga district there. To some other stories, and back here in Accra, the Minority Leader Alexander Piomakin has accused the Executive Director of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, Raymond Acha, of running a one-man show at the agency. According to him, Mr. Archer is not listening to anyone, including experienced investigators within the institution. He claims that the Yoko boss has weaponized the institution to pursue personal vendettas, and his comments follow a series of arrests involving former appointees of the erstwhile NPP government over allegations of various criminal offenses. The minority has criticized what it describes as draconian bail conditions, arguing that the measures are intended to intimidate former government appointees. While speaking to Roland Walker on TV3 New Day program, Apenyomakin urged Raymond Archer to allow due process and institutional systems to work rather than pursue what he described as a personal agenda.
So MPP as a party is not against any step by this government to investigate any appointee. Rather, the problem we have is the subtle persecution, the attack, the approach. I mean, if you look at what Mr. Raymond Archer is doing at Iyoko, it's very unconscionable to say that you are investigating an individual and for that matter, the value of the investigation should determine his bail. With respect, it's never done. And in fact, his own party, his own government appointees are frustrated by his approach. Not because they don't want him to investigate, but his style. He's turned it into a one-man institution.
Yeah, you made that comment. How did you draw those conclusions?
Oh, why? I am part of the political ecosystem. And you think I wouldn't know? He's doing a one-man job. You know, look at the Attorney General himself. The office of the Attorney General is singing a different hymn. He's also singing a different hymn. Meanwhile, he's supposed to report to the Attorney General. Okay? The truth is that as a respected investigative journalist, he must learn the art of that office. It's an intelligence agency, an investigative agency. The approach is different from an individual investigative journalist. He may have a set of tools to achieve a particular purpose. But when it comes to that office, it's different. You go to BNI, the way the Director General operates, his posture alone is quite different. You meet those investigators at BNI, they've been trained. They have a different approach. You go to CID headquarters, the approach is different.
What are you trying to say? That he's the wrong person for the job?
I am saying that even if he's a wrong person for the job, he should learn the ropes of the job. Because it is not the Takashi approach.
Takashi?
I'm saying it is not the Takashi approach that will give him results.
Alexander Afenyomakin is minority leader there. Well, while urging the Yoko boss to pursue reforms at the agency, the minority leader also encouraged former NPP appointees not to succumb to pressure.
Not keeping people, saying that I've detained you. You ask for bail, people bring property. Then the next moment you are investigating how the person acquired his property. We are not in a communist country. We are not in a police state. Ghana is a democracy. So I have a lot of respect for him, but I would also want to encourage him that he should allow systems to work. He should trust the system, and if he thinks that the system he came to meet is weak or is not strong enough or is not workable, that is why he's the chief executive. That's why he's the executive director. He should pursue reforms, but he cannot be too individualistic and take certain decisions. I have stopped calling him. I won't call. And I told my colleagues, I don't be calling him.
You used to call him?
Of course, in the initial stages, in the early days, I won't call him. And in fact, left with me alone. When he imposes those onerous bail conditions, don't go and give him the property. Leave him.
And then what about the suspects?
I am saying, me, today, if for whatever reason and somebody close to me is arrested by Iyoko, and instead of granting him bail, he tells the person that go and bring property worth the amount I'm investigating. I'll tell the person...
You will not sign in those sureties? Or sign?
No. Don't let me finish my statement. I'll tell the person that don't yield. Let him keep you. Because he will keep you up to what point?
Alexander Apenyo Marking speaking there. Now, month of military raids, dozens of excavators seized, millions spent on the fight against Galamsey. And yet, the Ankobra River still runs brown. Despite repeated operations by security forces in the western region, the dream of restoring the river to its natural state remains out of reach. We go upstream with the Regional Security Task Force, led by Brigadier General Musa Weja, retired, to see for ourselves what months of crackdowns have not achieved. Erama Smith has details in a report that will be available to you in a few minutes. This is still the midday news here on 3FM 92.7, also live on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. Let's bring you the story about mothers, because mothers who deliver at the Continental Government Hospital in the Bosomtwe district will no longer have to endure the painful experience of lying on hospital floors due to congestion at the maternity ward. This follows the handing over of a newly renovated and expanded maternity ward facility aimed at improving maternal and child health care delivery while easing pressure on the hospital's limited infrastructure. There's more in this report.
For years, the maternity ward at the Continental Government Hospital struggled with inadequate bed capacity, forcing some new mothers to sleep on the floor after delivery. Hospital authorities say the situation not only affected the comfort and dignity of patients, but also placed enormous pressure on healthcare workers.
It's challenging both for the mother first and the health worker. The mother, because she's just delivered, and if you have her being on the ground, it's a bit of a challenge. She will have to undergo CS and a whole lot. So that's, in that instance, it's not good for their health. And then for the health workers to having to nurse a patient on the floor, their back pain issues and all those things, it doesn't augur well. And you can also send them away because she has just delivered. So we have to find every means available to take care of them. And so that is done on the floor.
The maternity ward previously operated with less than 10 beds, far below the growing demand of maternal healthcare services in the Bosomtwe district. In a bid to bridge the healthcare gap and improve maternal care, Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe and former Minister of Education, Dr. Yaose Duchum, has expanded the maternity ward with 12 additional beds. The lawmaker says the intervention became necessary after witnessing the difficult conditions under which nurses and mothers operated at the facility.
Healthcare is something that we all have to pay close attention to, and especially maternal care. We want to eliminate maternal mortality or reduce it to the barest minimum in Bosomtwe. So the number of beds there were very limited, about 8 or so. So I decided to add 12 more. So that when it comes to delivery, when they come here, there will be a place for them to deliver, and they will not deliver on the floor, or they will not be turned away.
Management of the hospital believes the expanded maternity ward will significantly improve maternal health care outcomes by providing mothers with safer and more comfortable post-delivery care. The intervention is also expected to ease congestion, improve the working condition of health professionals, and restore dignity to mothers seeking health care at the Continental Government Hospital.
A report by my colleague Ibrahim Abubakar there. Still on the midday news on 3FM 92.7. Let's bring you this story. Government will roll out the Big Push dashboard to showcase updated roads constructed under the flagship Big Push agenda. Now, the online portal, according to the Roads Minister Kwame Agboja Governs, will receive real-time state of all projects awarded and the Big Push, affording citizens the opportunity to be part of the construction process. Meanwhile, the first Big Push road project, the Takrade Aguna Road, is expected to be commissioned in 2 months, a year clear of schedule.
It's almost there.
We also started there. Over.
Okay. The final
yes,
cycle.
yes.
Okay.
2 teams. One is starting from the end, and the one is starting from the end.
Oh, okay. When were you supposed to finish originally?
Next year, 27, I think July, March.
March 20.
March 20.
So you are almost going to be almost a year ahead,
Yes.
simply because this has been made a big push project and payment has been because
Yes,
the reason it almost stalled when was it 78 million?
Yes.
$78 million was raised as a cumulative 4 certificate, and not one cedi or $1 was paid. And it nearly stalled the project because it nearly probably made the contractor bankrupt, because that was almost all facilities they took. And the President Mahama decided that let this be big push. The good news is that the contractor is very patriotic, determined to get this project completed. And I think Western Region will be blessed to have this project completed. The difficulty now is for me to find something else. What we are also planning to do is that the country must know good news like this. So shortly, the Big Push dashboard will go live, where wherever you are, you can see which projects in which regions and what percentage of work has been done by anybody. So we don't have to come to site to hear that 20%, 5% have been done. Before the end of the year, the Big Push dashboard will be live. It will be a monthly installment of what has happened on every side. It will change every month, and I think this is a very good news. And just for your team and the consultant contract.
The Roads and Highways Minister Kwame Agboja governs there. Let's take you out of Accra and visit the northern part of the country, because the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly in the northern region has held its maiden town hall meeting outlining plans covering infrastructure, agriculture, education and youth employment as part of efforts to improve transparency and strengthen public participation in governance. Speaking at the Assembly's 2026 Town Hall meeting, Mayor of the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly, Adam Bubakari Tokoro, emphasized that the engagement was designed to enhance accountability, deepen citizen engagement, and enable residents to track government projects and policies within their communities. According to him, the past 1 year has seen the Assembly witness unprecedented local-level development initiatives. Christopher Mwako is in the area. He sat through the engagement. He's joining us with some more update. Chris, thank you for joining us. How has the Assembly fared in terms of development interventions over the past year?
Yes, so Crosby, we've seen some development interventions when it comes to road infrastructure in the area of agric, in the area of education and health. And according to the mayor of Tamale, that initiative that the Assembly adopted is to enhance infrastructure development so that, first of all, they will take schools under trees in the metropolis. They will be able to make healthcare accessible to the people with the construction of some church compounds in the metropolis. He's also indicated that it is important for the chiefs and people of Tamale to actually know what the Assembly has been doing over the past 1 year, and the need for them to appreciate that the Assembly is poised on ensuring development in the area. Let's take a listen to what the mayor of Tamale has been saying.
And furnishing of one number 3 unit classroom block with facilities at the Loyale and the Common Fund. Review. Management received these releases from the Common Fund Administrator in respect of fourth quarter 2025 as stated below. 2025 District Assembly Common Fund fourth quarter 6,243,000. The Assembly internal revenue projection for 2026 is 5,792,514 Ghana cedi. Our revenue mobilization data as at the end of the first quarter 2026 indicate that the Assembly has generated a total amount of 1,361,145 Ghana cedi, 84 pesos. This represents only 25% of the annual target.
And Christopher Mwako, the voice we just heard outlining some of the achievements, if you like, that the Assembly has made over the period that has been spoken about. What more will you add to this? And when you're done with that, we know that the Tamale water crisis is one critical gap, which the mayor has been working on. How is the situation now?
Yes, so if you look at the Tamale metropolis, I would say that over the past 1 year, I have followed the assembly in its developmental intervention, talk about the constructions of the various infrastructure springing up. I would say that yes, some infrastructure facilities are springing up in the metropolis. And the mayor has indicated that it is in a way of bridging the developmental gap. But the water crisis is something that, as we speak, some pumps have been bought because the only pump was bought around the 1972s. And so some 3 additional pumps have been added. And so areas that hitherto were not getting water flowing through their taps are beginning to see water flow through their taps. But it is on a rationing base. And so the people are hoping that the promise made by John Dramani Mahama that the Tamale water project will commence and the Tamale water crisis will be a thing of the past. They are only hoping that this will see the light of day. But for now, things are beginning to get better when it comes to the water supply. And fortunately for the residents, we are just about entering the rainy season. And so during this time, the demand for water from the Ghana Water Company is not that much, except for institutions.
I see. Christopher, thank you so much for joining us with those updates. Christopher Marco speaking to us from Tamale there. Now to the OT region, where the implementation of government's flagship program, the Free Primary Healthcare Initiative, has commenced in the OT region following a regional launch of the program in Dambai. The Minister of Health, Kwabena Minta Kando, said all 9 districts and municipalities in the region will benefit from the initiative immediately, adding that government is committed to bringing health care much more closer to Ghanaians regardless of their location.
The launch of the Free Primary Healthcare Initiative in the OT region was preceded a series of engagements led by the Minister of Health, Kwabena Minta Akando. At a Debar of Chiefs and stakeholders on Saturday, the OT Regional Minister, John Japon Kujo, said the introduction of the program is timely and addresses the access gap that existed between communities and healthcare in the region.
The OT region, like many developing regions, continues to face challenges in healthcare accessibility, especially within our rural and hard-to-reach communities. For many families, the cost of seeking health care at the early stages of illness has often delayed treatment and worsened health outcomes. This free primary health care program comes at a crucial time to bridge this gap and bring health care closer to the doorsteps of our people.
President Mahama on April 15 launched the Free Primary Healthcare Initiative aimed at increasing access to basic healthcare services for all citizens. The program is focused on prevention and early detection, which will allow Ghanaians to receive care at community-level facilities without paying out of pocket. The Minister of Health explained that the initiative is a comprehensive policy that will remove the financial bottlenecks that deter Ghanaians from accessing basic health care.
The free primary health care is applicable to all the 33 million Ghanaians. There wouldn't be any point in time where they will say that because your card has not been reviewed or renewed, you cannot get access to primary health care. You have to identify yourself as a Ghanaian, whether your passport, Ghana card, or voter ID card.
The program is expected to commence immediately across all 9 municipalities and districts in the OT region, with the ministry delivering several medical supplies and equipment to the Regional Health Directorate to support the implementation of the policy.
We have directed that all the 9 districts in the OT region will be part of the 150 districts that we will start with. The long-term or the medium-term plan is that by the end of 2028, we must have all, the 261 districts covered.
This is still the midday news on 3FM 92.7. Let's bring you some other stories this afternoon. And the minority leader and the Futu MP, Alexander Pino Markin, has criticized Gold Board over its handling of gold purchases, accusing the institution of failing to distinguish between legally mined gold and gold sourced from illegal mining activities, commonly known as galamsey. According to him, the current system risks encouraging illegal mining operations if proper checks are not enforced.
There is policy misalignment. The government must not look at one side and think that, for instance, gold board. We've been told that the gold for reserve policy is one reason why our cedi is stable. We've been told. Let me for a moment agree. Then within that context, there are two excesses. One, in doing so, you have now allowed a field day, an open space for galamsey activity. It's not me who is saying it. Organized labor has said it publicly that since this government assumed office, galamsey activities have gone up. Because Gold Board is not making a distinction between regularly mined gold and gold coming from
the launch of the free primary health.
Because if they give money to the aggregators, they get onto the market and they buy any gold they get. The second bit is that Gold Board is buying the gold at a discounted price from the miner and selling it at the world market price. Now, the gap, the losses. Instead of Gold Board bearing the losses, Gold Board is saying that, look, Bank of Ghana, I'm doing that for you. So, Bank of Ghana, take the losses.
Minority Leader Alexander Apenyo marking that. Now, still on the concerns of galamsey, months of military raids, dozens of excavators have been seized and millions have been spent on the fight against galamsey. And yet, the Ankobra River still runs brown. Despite repeated operations by security forces in the western region, the dream of restoring the river to its natural state remains out of reach. We go upstream this afternoon with the Regional Security Task Force led by Brigadier General Musa Uweja, retired, to see for ourselves what months of crackdowns have and have not achieved. Irama Smith has more in this report.
Among Ghana's hardest hit by illegal mining. The result, dangerously high turbidity that has made the water unusable for thousands of communities downstream. But the technology to reverse it already exists.
In the Minerals Engineering Department, they are also taking samples from these same rivers and calculating how they can purify it. I want to say and put it on record that UMAT has the technology and the know-how to clear all the polluted rivers in Ghana if given the opportunity.
Over the weekend, the Western Regional Security Council, including the National Security and the Western Naval Command, patrolled the Ankobra to assess what months of operations have changed. Leading the team, Brigadier General Musa Uweja, retired, said the permanent deployment of NIMOS in Lemble is a turning point.
There's some quite improvement in the integrity of the river. I am with the opinion that now that NIMO has established the allocation at Lemble, working together with the Regional Security Task Force, I think the Ankobra River will be restored to normalcy. There will be much more improvement. Except the only thing is that there is the need for constant, patrolling on the river.
The improvement is visible, but only on the surface. Illegal miners have abandoned direct river dredging. Instead, they've dug long water holes connected to pumping machines on the banks. After extraction, the toxic wastewater flows straight back into the river, undoing any...
Because of the water that they use in the operation, they always pump the water to the various site and then return the water that have been used to wash the soil.
Irama Smith ending that report there. That's how we draw the curtains on the midday news on 3FM 92.7. I'm Noble Crosby Annan. Business News is up next. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Fitch signals possible extension of government fuel relief measures as rising global oil prices threaten inflation and transport costs. Also ahead, Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy raises alarm over $600 million petroleum revenue losses as more than 200 million liters of fuel go missing between 2020 and 2025. Plus, Chinese battery materials giant Huayu moves to take control of Ghana's Ewoya lithium project as it assumes full development funding obligations amid proposed $210 million Atlantic lithium takeover. I am Bismarck Hausa. I will bring you details of our headlines and other stories shortly. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. International ratings agency Fitch Ratings is projecting that government may extend temporary fuel relief measures introduced last month to cushion consumers against rising petroleum costs. The agency warns that sustained increases in global crude oil prices could trigger renewed inflationary pressures and force authorities to maintain interventions beyond the May 16 deadline, especially if the fiscal burden remains manageable. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report. According to Fitch, the intervention may continue if the monthly fiscal cost remains below 0.1% of GDP and can be offset by savings in other areas. Government in April began absorbing 2 cedis per litre on diesel and 36 pesos on petrol following sharp increases in global crude oil prices. The temporary policy is expected to expire on May 16, but Fitch believes authorities may be compelled to maintain the relief to prevent rising fuel costs from worsening inflation. Crude oil prices have climbed again on the international market, with Brent crude hovering around $105 per barrel amid geopolitical tensions involving the United States and Iran. Meanwhile, petroleum prices are expected to be reviewed again from May 16, with indications of further increases in petrol, diesel, and LPG prices. Fitch also upgraded Ghana's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating from B- to B with a positive outlook, citing stronger economic growth, fiscal consolidation, and improved external balances. The agency projects Ghana's economy will record average growth of 5% through 2027, supported by gold exports, easing inflation, and improving consumer confidence. And that was the 3 Business News Desk report on Fitch Ratings signaling possible extension of government fuel relief measures as rising global oil prices threaten inflation and transport. Still on the petroleum sector, the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy, IERPP, is warning that Ghana's fragile fiscal recovery could be undermined by massive revenue leakages in the petroleum sector, following claims that more than 200 million liters of fuel cannot be accounted for between 2020 and 2025. The institute says the missing fuel volumes may have cost the state over 600 million cedis in lost tax revenue, despite improvements in overall tax collection performance over the past 5 years. The following 3 Business News Desk report has the details. In a statement signed by its executive director, Professor Isaac Boidi, the institute cited findings from petroleum sector reports, industry groups, and oversight institutions, including PIAC, pointing to persistent weaknesses in fuel monitoring and distribution systems. The IERPP says weak controls at the ports and across the petroleum supply chain continue to create opportunities for losses and questioned why real-time monitoring systems previously introduced are allegedly no longer functioning effectively. The institute also noted that although Ghana Revenue Authority GRA collections rose strongly from 43.9 billion cedis in 2019 to 153.6 billion cedis in 2024, structural inefficiencies continue to affect indirect tax performance and domestic revenue mobilization. It further expressed concern over a sharp decline in oil and gas receipts in 2025, describing the development as a major fiscal risk at a time Ghana is pursuing economic recovery under ongoing reforms. IERPP is now calling for stricter enforcement, improved accountability, and urgent action to plug revenue leakages within the petroleum and customs sectors. And that was a 3 Business News report on the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy, IERPP, raising alarm over 600 million cedis petroleum revenue losses as more than 200 million liters of fuel go missing between 2020 and 2025. Let's stay a while longer on the extractive sector because Chinese battery materials giant Zhejiang Huayu Cobalt has agreed to assume the remaining development funding obligations for Ghana's Ewoya lithium project in a move that could significantly improve financing certainty for the long-delayed mine. The agreement comes as Huayu also pursues a proposed $210 million takeover of Atlantic Lithium, marking a major shift in the ownership and financing structure of the project. Under the agreement, Huayu will acquire all of Ilevra Lithium's rights and obligations linked to Ewoya for about $70 million, subject to regulatory approvals and Ghanaian ministerial clearance. Atlantic Lithium says the new agreement effectively removes key development funding hurdles that had created uncertainty around the project's future. We will be following this development and bring you updates as and when we have them. This is still Business Daily on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Awusa. To some other stories, banking consultant Dr. Richmond Etuahene has commended government's efforts to stabilize the economy, but says 2027 will be a critical test of the progress made so far. His comments follow Fitch Ratings' decision to upgrade Ghana's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating from B- to B with a positive outlook. Speaking on Business Focus on TV3, Dr. Etuahene says Ghana still faces significant debt servicing obligations from 2027, which could increase the country's vulnerability, particularly given its relatively low tax to GDP ratio.
We've done very well to go against the storm, and actually we haven't finished. We are almost in the middle of the storm. So I would say that we have basically done very good, but we haven't there yet. The journey will start from 2027. On 2027, Ghana had to take a debt of 57 billion, payment of DDEP, principal payment. In addition to the Eurobond 2.7 billion, have we put in structures to be able to pay? Or we just clamoring of figures? That is where the journey actually begins. And if you're not able to pay, then you go for restructuring. If you're not able to do, maybe you do a refinancing. So for me, I think this is beginning of the real journey. And we need to begin to look at how are we going to survive 2027 and 2028. Forget about a Fitch analysis. It's excellent. There's nothing wrong about it. But the real journey, as I've told you, is 2027, 2028.
And that was banking consultant Dr. Richmond Etuahene. Meanwhile, financial economist Dr. Eric Boakye-Yadom believes government must proceed cautiously in any attempt to return to the international capital market despite the upgrade by Fitch Ratings. Speaking on Business Focus, he stressed that priority should instead be placed on addressing major domestic revenue leakages to strengthen the country's fiscal position.
Some few years ago, when we had conversations on revenue assurance and the fact that there are some bodies that are doing things to improve, to watch over, especially in our ports, in terms of revenue collections, to be able to minimize leakages. And there were a whole lot of challenges, that came up at the time. But what we know from those time, from 2020 to somewhere 2024, 2025, was that generally these leakages were less reported, or it was not generally in the media. But now if you are beginning to see 200 million liters resulting to about 600 million Ghana cedis of possible fuel revenue and also tax revenue getting missing, then it means that possibly we may have to revisit the conversation of having a third eye, looking at what NPA platforms, the ERDMs, and the ICOM system that are doing, because these systems are still there, and we are still reporting revenue leakages in our ports and all those areas.
And that was financial economist Dr. Eric Boachiadom ending Business Daily on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also, for more business stories, please check out our website 3news.com. Thanks for your company.